Hey, welcome back to the About the Labor podcast here at Black Stack Brewing, and I am BJ Reidell, back here with my guy, Drew Mahowald. And today we're talking a little bit about Taylor Heinicke, Sam Bradford, and kind of whatever else comes up. So basically this is going to be a quarterback emphasis show. This is a little bit of a different introduction, I guess, today because I'm currently sitting here in beautiful Black Stack Brewing and having a few beers while Drew still is stuck out at St. John's until he graduates from college. So, so like I said, Taylor Heinicke, I'm going to talk a little bit about him, get some thoughts thrown out on that. Basically, I'm just going to tell you guys that I was right about him. And then we're going to talk about Sam Bradford and kind of go from there. We'll see how that works. So, let's start this off here with a read from Can Wonderland once again. Can Wonderland is a one-of-a-kind Twin Cities experience. Pack up the kids and check out the coolest indoor mini golf course in Minnesota. Don't worry, there are plenty of creative cocktails and artisan pizza for the adults. Don't forget to stop by Black Stack Brewing. That's where I'm sitting right now. It's upstairs from Can Wonderland for a couple of beers after playing some mini golf. Can Wonderland, Black Stack Brewing, two spots that make the Twin Cities the best cities on Earth. And for something personal, I mean, again, I'm just going to mention this New England IPA. I feel like I've done it a million times already, but I can't say enough about how delicious this is. And I'm not a beer connoisseur. I'm just someone that drinks beer socially. So I'm a huge fan of this. So I imagine for those of you who are people who enjoy the flavor and different taste testing and that type of stuff, I think that this is probably a good fit for you. So Black Stack Brewing, make sure to check that out as well as Can Wonderland. All right, let's jump right into it here. Like I said, let's talk a little bit about Taylor Heinicke first. For those of you who missed it, on Christmas, Taylor Heinicke, who was with the Minnesota Vikings during training camp this year, he injured his foot last year kicking down a door, which was something. It was special. And that's kind of...
It was very Vikings is what it was.
And finally, so he got picked up by the Chicago Bears practice squad earlier in the year. He was released there after 2 weeks, and he spent 4 weeks on the practice squad with the New England Patriots. Then he got to Houston, and that was close to around the same time that Deshaun Watson got hurt and Tom Savage went into concussion protocol. And as of late, they've been shifting between T.J. Yates and Taylor Heinicke. So Heinicke makes his NFL debut for the Houston Texans on Christmas. He comes in, I believe he played 6 snaps, and then he got hurt. Which, if it's a terrible situation for Mr. Heinicke. I feel horrible for the guy, but he seems like the type of dude who kind of laughs that sort of thing off and understands, it's part of the process. So I'm just very amped about...
Are you going to read off all the stats that you tweeted? Because I think you should, because to our listeners and to our viewers, I did not condone... I wasn't a fan of this segment because I don't know how good of a radio it is for a Vikings show to have a former 4th-string quarterback on now playing for the Texans being talked about so much, but this is BJ's boy, so that's what we're doing. BJ, you can have the rest of this segment, and we'll see how many listeners are left when you're done.
Yeah. Okay, so Taylor Heinicke, he completed 1 pass on 1 attempt.
100% completion percentage.
100% completion percentage. That is better than Tom Brady in his career. He was sacked 1 time. Peyton Manning was sacked 303 times, just so you guys know. His quarterback rating, I believe, is 108.7. I don't have it right in front of me. That's better than pretty much every quarterback ever. So take from that what you will. Basically what I'm telling you here is that stats can be stupid, but I'm also telling you that Bill O'Brien, Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniels, Mike Zimmer, these are all the coaches. And then you can throw John Fox and Dowell Loggins in there if you want, but I feel like that kind of hurts my argument. Believe in this kid. They think that this kid has something special somewhere. And, we got a very small sample size of that. Let me make this very explicitly clear to you guys. I know it's a small sample size. I know that it's basically a joke. I'm having fun with it.
It's not even a sample size.
Yeah.
It doesn't even qualify as a sample size, I don't think.
But it is really fun for me because I do think that we saw a lot of the same things that we saw when he was in Minnesota. We saw in a very, very, very tiny amount of times, we were able to see that this kid has ability. He has the ability to manipulate the pocket. He has poise in the pocket. He's smart. He completed a pass to Will Fuller, who drops everything in sight. This is a kid who has some potential, and I'm just telling you that, you don't need to buy in. I don't need you guys to tell me that he's good for me to believe that he's good. I see on tape and through statistics and through people that I've spoken with that they believe in this kid. And the reason why he got cut, and you could kind of look at it now and kind of see the reasoning behind it. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater was going to come off of IR at some point. I think the Vikings knew that the entire time. Sam Bradford was the starter to begin the season. That's 2 quarterbacks. Case Keenum, as Drew said 100 times during the summer, has a ton of experience. He knows the system well, and it was kind of just a matter of time, possibly.
I was right about Case Keenum. That's what you're saying.
I think you were. I really do. I mean, I was wrong about him. I'm willing to admit that, but I think that, again, I've been making this point a lot throughout the year here, that situation really matters. And who knows? I mean, I don't know a whole lot about Kyle Sloter beyond his Denver film that I was able to watch, and a couple people that I've spoken with saying, this is a talented kid. But for the most part, I have been very impressed with every quarterback that was on the Vikings roster this summer. And Taylor Heinicke, I think, just proved to a degree, he still has a lot of work to do, but I think he proved to a degree that he does belong in the NFL in some capacity. Whether that's as a spot starter, potentially a starter down the road, or just a guy that's an injury, a guy that replaces a player after injury. I think you guys need to factor that type of thing in when we make these predictions. Is when I'm saying something like Taylor Heinicke is talented and he has the capacity to be a spot starter in the NFL, I'm also considering the fact that quarterbacks get hurt a lot. And, I've been lucky enough, or I guess I should say fortunate enough, that to a degree these questions have all been answered this year because we've seen so many injuries. And, that sucks for players. Right. Don't get me wrong. It sucks for them. But as someone who's trying to be objective about the NFL as a whole and specifically the Vikings, it's important for me to know that type of thing as well. So I would just say keep an eye on Taylor Heinicke. He's got the passion for the game. He's got the talent. And if he does come back and get the opportunity to start Week 17 for Houston, I don't know. I have not confirmed that notion. Then great. I think you should cheer for him because this is a kid that came in, worked his tail off out of Old Dominion, broke a ton of records at Collins High in Georgia. I mean, he's a very talented player, and I'm just here to tell you that I'm jacked for his future because I think that he has that special edge to the game that you really need to play the quarterback position at a high level. And from there, let's talk about some actual Vikings football. I mean, I know that
So we're done with Taylor Heinicke.
We're done with Taylor Heinicke for now.
Okay.
We're going to talk about Sam Bradford now. So Drew and I, mainly Drew, ran a poll, and also Kyle, our sports grunt, ran a poll on the About the Labor Twitter account. If you guys didn't catch that, make sure you're following the Twitter account. That helps us. It helps you guys for keeping up with the show if that's something you enjoy doing. But basically what happened is, so when Sam Bradford, when the news hit earlier this week, or maybe last week, that he had the potential to return from injured reserve. That was kind of something that was thrown around. I heard from a couple of people that was something to believe in.
Mike Zimmer today now has actually, he was asked about it today in the presser, and he said not this week for practice, but it looks like he's on schedule to be back next week for practice, which will throw. I mean, the quarterback situation in Minnesota just never sleeps. I don't think. Right. I mean, it's always chaotic. So, but the poll, I actually did this yesterday, so we were kind of ahead of the game here for when Zimmer would say. We released the poll before Zimmer said this today in the press conference. So, I mean, I think we're kind of ahead of the game here. This poll got nearly 1,000 votes. If Sam Bradford is declared 100% healthy before divisional round week, where would he move to on the quarterback depth chart? Or where should he move to, I guess? Not where would he, but I asked followers where should he move on the QB depth chart. 13% said he should be starting right away. 44% said he should slide in second string right behind Keenum and ahead of Bridgewater. 38% said third string, and then only 5% said he should be the fourth string quarterback behind Kyle Sloter. So, I'm going to get your response here to this, or what your take is on the Bradford situation if he's healthy, and then I'll go through some of the responses we got as well from people, because there are some good ones I think as well. So, where are you on the Bradford thing? Because if he's healthy, are you playing him in a starter? Are you putting him ahead of Bridgewater? What are you doing?
See. Okay, so I saw the results of this poll, and I know already that a lot of you guys are not going to like my take on this, but it's my take, so here it is. I think Case Keenum's a great quarterback. I think he's a very talented quarterback. He has shut me up, straight up. this year. He has done everything possible to silence my voice in saying that he's not as talented as I said he was this past summer. Now, that said, I don't believe he's a great quarterback. I think he's a very good system quarterback and again, I should say this because I think people always take system quarterback as a knock. Tom Brady is a system quarterback to a degree. He works well with Josh McDaniels. He works well with Bill Belichick, and that's what makes him as good as he can possibly be. You need good coaching. You need a good system. All of those things. You need good wide receivers that can break off the line. You need good tight ends. These are all important factors to quarterbacks being good. It's more of a matter of, in my opinion, it's more a matter of passion, edge, talent for the game, being able to be cerebral, read the field quickly, do everything in 3 seconds sometimes. That's what makes a good quarterback in my mind. And I think that, Jordan Reed did a great job explaining that earlier on Twitter when he was asked, I believe it was Dan Shanka from Our Lads Inquiry, put out basically asked if, what traits do you look for in quarterbacks? And I think Jordan did a great job doing that. So check out his timeline at JReed Draft Scout. But to get to my point, I think Sam Bradford should be the starter if he's 100% healthy. Now, we have a sample size for Sam Bradford in Pat Shurmur's system. That's why, for me, he's a safer pick than Teddy Bridgewater. I don't necessarily believe that Bradford is better than Bridgewater, though I have the indication through what I have seen that Bradford is, in fact, the better quarterback for this particular system. But again, we've seen 2 throws from Teddy Bridgewater. I'm not going to completely rule him out yet. But what I'm ramping up to here is that Sam Bradford should be the starter because week 1, he was the starter. Case Keenum has filled in admirably. I'm all about riding the, quote, hot hand. But as our guy Tyler Carmer said on Twitter earlier this week, or maybe today even, he said it's more of a warm hand. And I really like that analogy because Keenum is playing well, but he's not playing elite football. Sam Bradford, when he was in week 1 against New Orleans, and I understand they're a different team now, I understand the Vikings are a different team now, he was an elite quarterback. That single game was one of the best quarterbacking performances that I have seen in recent memory. Right? Especially relative to the Vikings. That was an outstanding game across the board. So I believe he is the better quarterback. Am I okay with Mike Zimmer riding Case Keenum all the way out? Yes, of course. I mean, he's been playing well. I think the Vikings can win a Super Bowl with Case Keenum. Do I think the Vikings have a better opportunity to win the Super Bowl with Sam Bradford at the helm? Yes, that is, and ultimately, that's why I think that Sam Bradford should be plugged in. Get him a week of practice, this week, a week of practice next week, assuming they clinch their bye. And there you go. I mean, he'll have 2 weeks to prep, and then it becomes, can he insert himself into game action and be ready to roll immediately? That's something we're going to have to see, but when you start a quarterback, that doesn't mean you can't pull him. We saw that in Chicago. If Bradford's playing poorly, we should trust Case Keenum to come in and be ready to roll as the starter if necessary.
See, the timeline is just a little bit off here with this. Right. If Bradford was able to come back and play Week 17, I would absolutely be all for this because you get a full game. It's relatively meaningless. I mean, there's a very tiny chance the Vikings don't get that 2 seed, but more likely than not, they will be the 2 seed in the first round bye. So you could get Bradford a full game. You can get him then a full extra week of practice, prepare him for the real games that matter where, you lose and you're done. But now that isn't the case.
No pun intended.
I actually didn't even do that on purpose.
I saw it.
No pun intended. But okay, so now that his only chance to return is a divisional round playoff game, I'm not willing to take that risk because we saw, what was holding me, why I wanted Teddy to play so early in the year before was that he was going to get games, a few games here to kind of get the rust off, right? He would have time to get the rust off before the playoffs. And then he could be ready to go for the playoffs when the Vikings, when the games mattered and when, the season's on the line every snap, right?
Right.
The Vikings don't have that time and that liberty to take that risk. So now I think you have to go with what you have. And what you have is pretty good in Case Keenum. This offense is a top 10 offense. They're scoring efficiently, with exception to that Green Bay game last week. They've been dominant, really, since the bye week. And I really don't think, plugging a guy in after not playing for, it would be, 18 weeks or something like that?
Yeah.
18 weeks off, and you're going to plug this guy in a game where, everything's on the line. I'm not on board with that. So I think Case has proven me, he has, he's won me over, like you had said in your article on Vikings territory. Case has won me over, and where I think, as talented as Sam Bradford is, and as good as he is when he's healthy, he's probably better. He is better than Case Keenum for sure. But I think sticking with Case Keenum is the right option. I would put him as the second string, and then I'd actually have Teddy as the third string quarterback in this trio. Moving forward for the rest of the season.
Yeah. See. This is the definition of a quarterback carousel right here, folks.
It's unbelievable. This is unprecedented, isn't it? Because
and dude, honestly, this is the ultimate kind of affirmation for Pat Shurmur as a play caller and as an offensive guru, I suppose, is that he's able to get the most out of Bradford, Keenum, and then I like to believe that Teddy.
The jury's still out on Bridgewater, but we
feel good about that. And then you've got Taylor Heinicke down in Houston. I told you I'd probably mention him again. He was playing well when given the opportunity. And Kyle Sloter, I mean, that's the guy from our guy Don from Ohio loves to talk about and joke about like regularly. And he's a talented. I mean,
his bit is not funny. I'm just going to mention that. We'll see if he listens to the show. But his bit, Kyle Sloter, I know people think it's funny. It's funny.
But my point being here is that all of these guys are playing well within their role, and that's important. That's really important because this is a team sport. No matter how many times people like to make it about individuals and what individuals can do, it's still a 63-man roster. It's 53 people plus a 10-man practice squad. I'm aware. So I think that. I agree with everything that Drew just said. For what it's worth, like the hot hand argument, like I actually I didn't agree with it before, and Matt Creer on Twitter deserves a lot of credit here because he actually was able to sort of get me thinking, I guess, in a different way, I suppose, and to see the value of the hot hand. People getting behind his teammate, and Case Keenum is. Part of what's making him great right now, I think, is that he's feeding off the energy of all the guys playing around him, all the positive energy, and he's the type of guy who plays with fire in his belly. So when he's got guys that are saying, Case, you can do this, he starts to think to himself, yeah, I actually can do this. So I appreciate Case Keenum, and I think that he is certainly capable of getting the job done at a high level. But I also think that Sam Bradford's the better quarterback still. And that's my opinion. I suppose we'll see how that rolls out, how the Vikings choose to manipulate this quarterbacking situation. But from what I've seen from fans of the team and people that talk to us about the show and people that I've spoken with, there are a lot of people who are concerned about this situation as for the reasons that Drew just referenced. To be honest with you, just the simple fact that if you lose,
the offense is it's very good in comparison to the rest of the league, and I think there's a lot at risk when you bring a guy in after 18 weeks of essentially no football activity.
Right.
There's a lot that can go wrong. There's also a lot that can go right, but I just think the divisional round of the playoffs was not the time to take that risk, in my opinion. But I understand that he's the better quarterback. I understand. Especially if he's 100% healthy and you can trust him. He's one of the most accurate passers in the league, and I'm sure he could light it up. But I think there's just a lot of things that could go wrong with chemistry, et cetera. Pass protection, and not because they're used to blocking for Case Keenum, who is a lot better moving around the pocket than Sam Bradford is. So, but I wanted to run off some of the replies and comments we got on this poll because some of them are funny and some of them make a lot of sense as well. But here, the first one I'm going to read off here is from a Twitter account called Fun Jerry Jones. Fun _ Jerry Jones.
He can be fun.
Says, apparently, he says, "Don't make the mistake the Cowboys did last year. Go to the more talented passer. That's Bradford." So I would assume this is a Cowboys
I like
fan.
that. That's a good.
But that's actually a good analogy. So,
Dak is not as good as he was last year. By the way, just to kind of give context to his point here, Dak is not the same quarterback.
More evidence to the theory that the situation greatly impacts how quarterbacks perform. I mean, They've had injuries on the offensive line. Zeke has been out for how many games suspended, and his performance has suffered. It's pretty clear, how much a good situation can impact. Our buddy Sanka at UK Skull play both Bradford and Keenum as starters. For read option plays, start Case, and for amazing boner-inducing throws from the pocket, start Sam. So there you go.
I love it, man.
There's a couple good ones. Let's see. From Sammy at Scolger80. It's Keenum's team now. Sorry, Sammy. From another Sammy. LOL. You can't do that right now with the momentum. So this guy's name is Sammy. He's saying, sorry, Sammy. From another Sammy. This is Keenum's team now. And so we do have we're getting a lot of good replies on this. I really appreciate the responses we got. But another one here the last one we'll read from Matt P at MattP_BU. I've been on Team Sam since he arrived. If he's 100%, he's the best QB on the roster. Easy choice. You plug him in. So, I mean, it's weird because the votes we got on the poll suggest that most people are saying don't start him. But we did get a lot of actual responses from followers that think he should he should be plugged in. So,
and that right there is a good example of why engagement sometimes is more important than.
Yes, that's true.
Who knows?
Yes,
maybe we're onto something with that.
Yeah, but I mean, we can debate and argue all we want, but the bottom line I'm kind of taking from all this is the Vikings are easily the most, the team in the playoffs most prepared and most able to deal with a quarterback injury as compared to the rest of the playoff teams in the NFC or the AFC. I mean, has there ever been a team with this much quarterback depth in the playoffs? I can't imagine.
I was just talking to. I can't remember who I was talking to on the Twitter.
This is if Bradford's 100% healthy. I mean, if Bradford's 100% healthy or is game ready to play,
right?
You have Sam Bradford, who had a phenomenal 2016 season given terrible circumstances, and then obviously lit it up week one. Teddy Bridgewater, who has proven himself as a capable starter at the very least in this league, and then Case Keenum's lighting it up and arguably in the MVP discussion. So you have three guys that are. I think any team would, pay lots of money for one of these three guys, and the Vikings have three of them. So it's pretty amazing what the Vikings put together here. But anything else you wanted to add on the Bradford, Keenum, Bridgewater trifecta here?
Not really. I think this is the type of conversation that can go in circles very easily.
Well, it's already doing that on Twitter. It's been doing that on Twitter since basically the rumors started that Bradford would return. So,
really?
Which is nothing new for Vikings Twitter. But
I mean, part of the fun of loving sports is debating sports. It's just a matter of can you be respectful while doing that? Yeah. I think some people have a difficult time communicating that message.
I'm seeing a lot of hypocritical comments. It's funny because you saw back when Bridgewater returned, it's a lot of the same people that said we got to stick with the hot hand, stick with Keenum, are not saying that now because Bradford is the one returning, and vice versa. You're saying, well, more talented guys, Bridgewater here, so you play him, and then now with Bradford coming back, it's you got to stick with the hot hand, stick with Keenum. It's just funny how that stuff comes out and how the same people are saying opposite things.
It's ironic.
Some of these,
it's ironic.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sure. That's how sports fandom works.
Well, I mean, if you tweet a lot, man, I mean, people are gonna know. People are gonna see what you're reading, and they're gonna remember it. You got to be a little bit careful with that. And then this show, a lot of the basis of this show goes through Twitter, and because you and I seem to enjoy Twitter and interacting with people and stuff like that. So I spend.
Facebook is just too much of a dumpster fire to go through for people. I mean, I feel like the comments are much more radical on Facebook than Twitter. But I mean, who knows?
Honestly, I'm with you on that. I think that because of the character limit on Twitter, it is 280 now, and I probably use that more than anyone, to be honest. But a lot of the show prep that goes into this is just me reading Twitter and getting outside opinion, so I have an idea of what people are thinking. Because we like to cater to you guys. The show is fun for us, but it's for you guys. So, if you say something stupid, I've said this before. We're not gonna put you on blast on the show because that's just disrespectful. But we are gonna talk about it,
Sure. So we can move on to the Twitter questions then. The couple we got this week.
Let's do that
for the show. First one from Joey Hansen 92 on Twitter. Has there ever been a player that was given all pro distinction but not voted to the Pro Bowl. And I think obviously the reference here is Harrison Smith, or Linval Joseph, I guess. It could also be in that discussion. But and I'm looking back, or I'm thinking back right now, and I can't think of one off the top of my head because the All Pro is basically the top of the top at each position, right. And the Pro Bowl kind of gives the honor to 3 or 4 guys at a position. So per conference. So I really can't think of one off the top of my head. I tried to do some research, but there's really not good research available necessarily on that exact. That's kind of specific. So right. I don't know if you found anything on this, but I can't think of one. And I think Harrison Smith would be a very, very good candidate for that.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure. But like you said, this is one of those things that's honestly it's difficult for me to get a straight answer on because as I was talking to Drew about the show. When he told me about this question, I was saying basically that the Associated Press has been in effect for however many years. I don't have that number off the top of my head. Pro Football Focus also now has an all-pro system. So being a Pro Football Focus all-pro is not the same thing as being an Associated Press all-pro. And then being a Pro Bowler, I don't know exactly how long the Pro Bowl has been around for. Again, I can't think of the number off the top of my head, but it's been around for a while, but a lot of things have also changed throughout the years. So how you get into the Pro Bowl has changed between fan voting, stuff like that. And for me, that they're not all the same thing. They're each are their own individual categories, right? So if you're an all-pro for the Associated Press, great, but you got to think about the voters involved there. And then you got to think about the voters involved at being an all-pro
right.
for.
I can probably guarantee you that Harrison Smith makes the All-Pro Football Focus team because of his. He's got. I think he literally has the best football or player grade of anybody in the league at 98.0.
Right.
It's pretty close.
Right.
If literally any player graded in their system,
and he has been an All-Pro in their system for what it's worth for 2 years,
like
where he
at least
2
years.
Yeah, where he has not been an All-Pro relative to. Let's call them old school voters, guys that have been in this business for a lot longer than I have and have a lot more wisdom than I do, to be quite honest with you. But they're also, to a degree, you could see things like, how Norv Turner was kind of set in his ways as an offensive coordinator because he was an innovator in the 90s, and then he comes to Minnesota and tries to do the exact same thing that he did in the 90s and early 2000s with the San Diego Chargers. And it just doesn't work because situation matters. So, I think that from what I understand, I don't believe a guy has ever been not been a Pro Bowler and then also been an All-Pro because generally speaking, the Pro Bowl is based off of fan votes, and fan votes tend to be based off of what you know about a player. But Harrison Smith is so quiet and just so. He's one of the most humble guys that I've ever been around in my entire life. He doesn't like to brag. That's just not the person that he is. He just loves to let his work on the field do the talking, and the right people know that he's the best safety in the NFL, and by right people I mean guys like Mike Zimmer, his teammates. Xavier Rhodes obviously is well aware of the benefits that he gets from playing next to a guy like Harrison Smith. Trey Waynes has probably helped to a degree as well. It's a team sport, and we need to remember that when we're trying to do individual analysis because everything these guys do well is also a product of what the guys around them are doing well, to a degree. There are examples of where this isn't true. Think about last week. I was rewatching the film. I tweeted this out earlier. That through the all-22 perspective, I was able to see that the Vikings defensive backs quite literally held coverage despite the 4-man pass rush not getting home for 13 seconds. Generally speaking, plays are between 2 and 5 seconds. 5 seconds being outstanding protection. Whereas 13 seconds is double, almost triple that. It's absurd. So a lot of people have to be playing well in order to not allow a completion there, and even more players have to be playing well in order to force a throwaway there, because Brett Hundley literally looked at the situation and was like, can't do it.
He's like, I got nothing. I saw that play too. Bakhtiari locked up, I think, Everson Griffin on that side, and he had all this time dancing around the pocket, and there was just nothing downfield. All 4 guys, I believe there's 4 guys running routes on that play, but all 4 guys just locked up, nothing there. And he did end up throwing away, but That's unbelievable. That's unheard of, especially today where these route concepts are, much more effective. And you got crossing routes, you have pick plays, you have all this stuff. And again, the position is set up to fail. And if you're given 13 seconds, you're supposed to fail. Like that's literally
right.
If there's a reason quarterbacks don't get 9 seconds to throw the ball. It's because you have pass rushers there to make them throw it sooner than they're supposed to. So yeah, I mean we're off topic, but basically, the Harrison Smith should be an All-Pro, and I think he very well has a chance to for the Associated Press, especially now after the 2 interceptions. Because again,
on national TV,
right? Exactly. This is a dead serious comment that, interception statistics and that type of thing mean a lot to the Associated Press All-Pro vote.
Right.
And he had 2 extra ones against the Packers that he did not have during the Pro Bowl vote. So I think that could actually make a big difference. But we'll move on to our last one here.
Let's quickly reference, though, you told me this before the show, that Harrison Smith was, in fact, Defensive Player of the Week as well.
Right.
And those type of mini awards, they also affect old school voters who, to be quite honest with you, probably just don't even have time to go through all 32 teams. I mean, how many people really do? So, next question.
Yeah, this is, I believe, an email that you got from Charles Harrison. Asking a pretty, important question that I think a lot of people haven't thought about yet at this point. But
excellent question.
So the potential bye week, the first round bye in the playoffs, how would that affect the other teams contacting Pat Shurmur, George Edwards, Andre Patterson, other coordinators on the Vikings coaching staff about head coaching jobs for next year? We know there's been some rumors that there's going to be double-digit job openings for head coaches in the NFL, and the Vikings have a bunch of guys that could be hot candidates for those jobs, and it looks like there'll be that room there for contact that week. So I don't know what the rule is on that. Do you have any idea, or if there has been this type of thing in the past?
So I did some research on this one because, like Drew said, this is a phenomenal question, and this is not something that I can answer off the top of my head because this is elite level questions here.
Our listeners are pretty good.
They really are. So how does it affect the coaching staff and the carousel and the quarterbacks to a degree? So from a legal perspective, this is how I understand it, is that they can't actively communicate with a team's coaching staff until the season is over. Now, again, that's how I understand it. At the same time, there are ways to get around that. We've seen teams have a way to contact coaches just to see if they might be interested. I can tell you, not as necessarily as a fact, but based off what I know of Pat Shurmur, is that he is in the zone right now, and he's probably the largest candidate to be a head coach, I think. I think that Mike Prefer is probably also subtly,
that's another name, yep.
Yeah, subtly a guy that could be a head coach. So I think that they are going to tune that type of stuff out until the Vikings are done. That's my perception of what I get from these guys. But at the same time, they do have the ability to find a way to talk to these teams that are interested in talking to them. I think the best example of this right here is what happened with Kyle Shanahan last year in Atlanta and San Francisco. Right. This is probably my favorite personal example. So we heard all off season, we heard going into the postseason, we actually heard during the regular season that Kyle Shanahan was going to be a top-tier, prime-time candidate, basically pick-your-job status once Atlanta Falcons were cut from the postseason. And we saw some teams kind of maybe get some happy feet and hire guys that weren't Kyle Shanahan just because they wanted to get a guy into the room. And to me, the perception I get from that is that that's because he was unwilling to interview until the Atlanta Falcons season was over, which, as you guys remember, didn't end until the Super Bowl last year. So that was, 6 weeks about of time where I'm sure teams and opposing, I guess, other organizations were trying to court Kyle Shanahan. But that necessarily, I don't know that for a fact. I don't follow Kyle Shanahan around like a shadow, But that's how it was received by me. And then as soon as the Falcons' run was over, upon being defeated by the Patriots in horrific fashion, Kyle Shanahan signed his deal with the San Francisco 49ers about a week later, which to me suggests that the 49ers they did everything right from a legal perspective, from a personal perspective. They respected his space to a degree, let him do his thing, and when they were done, they were like, all right, Kyle, come on in. We want to bring you in and talk to you and see if you're the right man for the job, knowing full well that he was already the right man for the job, but he wanted him to prove it, just as all of us need to on a daily basis. And Kyle Shanahan went in there, showed San Francisco everything that they needed to kind of hear again, I suppose, and he was hired almost immediately. And the results...
Yep, looking at the date now, so the Super Bowl 51 was February 4th, and Shanahan was hired February 7th. So it looks like, right afterwards, they kind of got together. They gave a couple of days of negotiations and interviews and stuff, and then they made the deal happen. So
a lot of what in my opinion, a lot of what the NFL likes to do is manipulate the media. They like to have some fun with us.
Sure.
Whether that's harmless and just kind of like subtly making fun of someone for asking rude questions or something like that, or sometimes that's just literally like not letting anything leak. No matter what, like you're fired if this leaks type of thing. And Shanahan, I think, is a great example of this because basically, if he is the person that I think he is, the person that he shows himself to be, I believe that his primary focus all of last year was to get the Atlanta Falcons in position to win the Super Bowl. And as far as I'm concerned, he did that. The defense was what let them down during that Super Bowl, and Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels and all that kind of stuff. He still got them to a point margin that was successful. And, obviously Julio Jones and Matt Ryan are a big part of that and whatnot. But, so that's kind of my take on just the overall situation, the overhead looking into the head coaching candidates. Guys like, I think George Edwards has also received a couple interviews in the past. Pat Shurmur has been a head coach for the Cleveland Browns. Mike Prefer last year, if you remember correctly, was with the filled in for Mike Zimmer against the Dallas Cowboys. There are a lot of guys on this staff that could be head coaches. And for those of you who don't believe that Mike Prefer could be a head coach, look no further than John Harbaugh, who was hired by the Baltimore Ravens. Not Jim Harbaugh, John was hired by the Baltimore Ravens after being a guru of special teams for many, many years. So it doesn't necessarily matter what type of coordinator you are. To be a head coach, it's more about being an authoritative figure and being able to to a degree control your players and have them listen to you. Control has a negative connotation, I think, but being able to basically tell your players what they need to do and buy into your mission. Buying in is really big here, and that's why I think Kyle Shanahan will eventually have success, and why Mike Zimmer has had success, and why I think that guys like Edwards, Shurmur, etc. can also have success in other organizations as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mike Zimmer would. It's my inclination that Mike Zimmer would kind of crack down on that type of thing. Right. I mean, I think he obviously would give them the opportunity to pursue other jobs if they were available. But at least if I was Zimmer, I would say, please stay focused on this goal because you're part of something bigger than yourself right now. So I would assume that's kind of the same process we would see. But yeah, I do think that first round bye, I think that a lot of teams will try to get in contact with Shurmur and give him a pitch or something like that to come to this team and. We have the right pieces. We have this and that for you, etc. So we'll see, if that impacts him, if that impacts how games are called, if that impacts his performance, or George Edwards or Prefer or whoever it is. But I do think that door does open with that first round bye. That's a very good point brought up in that question by, I'll read the name again, by Charles Harrison on an email to you. So, but that's all we.
Job.
Yep, that's all we had for our Twitter questions on this show. So.
All right, then. So I believe that about wraps things up then, unless you have any final notes that you want to mention here. Is there anything else you saw?
We'll be previewing the Bears hardcore for the Friday show. Yep. Just keep, as BJ always says, keep, downloading the show, whether it be iTunes, Stitcher,
Castbox, YouTube.
Watch on YouTube. We had a lot of our comment section was very fun in our last YouTube YouTube one. So
I love it when
that's good. Yeah.
I love it when we don't need to create the debate, when you guys just go in there and start it, and then
then we join in and
have some fun as well. Like, that's always fun. I really enjoy all that kind of stuff. So like Drew said, when you're on YouTube, if you are, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button if you are enjoying the show. If you're not enjoying the show, don't do that. On iTunes, Stitcher, you can find us at VikingsATLpod.com. That's through Podbean. Castbox, like as I've been mentioning recently, Castbox is kind of our go-to partner in crime right now. We like what they're doing. They seem to like what we're doing, and we have a kind of a team mission to find a better way to listen to podcasts, if that really is your thing, versus radio or whatever it is. So check out Castbox, not just for the About the Labor podcast, but also for the other options that they provide there. YouTube, as I just mentioned, Zone Coverage is where you can find my work. I put up a mailbag yesterday, and on Thursday I'll have a column. I'm still working out the idea right now in my head, so I don't want to preview that too much, but check that out on zonecoverage.com. Drew every week does his skull scale for VikingsTerritory.com. I know Sean Borman does a heck of a job over there as well, and all those guys really do a great job. So make sure to check out Vikings Territory, regardless of whether or not I am there. And yeah, so I think that's about it. Check out SOCOM Creative. That's our marketing strategy team. They don't just do stuff for people like me and people like Drew. They build apps. They do all kinds of crazy stuff. My personal agent is fantastic with video stuff and just getting us into the right place at the right time. So I highly recommend SOCOM Creative, folks. Make sure to check them out, whether that's on the internet or wherever you see them. They do fantastic work, and I'm proud to be a part of their team. So that's all I've got. We'll, like Drew said before, back this later on this week talking about the Bears game. We'll go through kind of the nuances of what makes that system difficult to manipulate and why Vic Fangio has had good success with just about everything that he's been in Chicago, whereas guys like John Fox and Dowell Loggins have sort of hurt the Bears. Firefox. That's a Bears Barroom slogan at this point. Make sure to check them out as well. Always love my guy Aldo Gandia. He's done so much for me in my life. So, that's all I got. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the show, being a part of the show, commenting on the show, everything that you guys do for us to make this passion project more of a reality every single day. And we will catch you guys later on this week for a Chicago Bears Minnesota Vikings preview.